Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Visha Khanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Tushe Namaha. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Welcome to Sri Caitanya Caritamrita class. So today we are continuing again the Raya Ramananda Samvad. Actually, even though we are on the second question, the other questions, they do not take as long to extrapolate upon, to teach upon. So we're actually well past the halfway point for the Raya Ramananda Samvad. I'm thinking we will maybe only have 3, 4, maybe 5 more lessons, and then we will be concluding the Raya Ramananda Samvad. But we are still meeting for the second question, the second out of 2. And we are continuing the first beginning answer to that, which was answering the first of the 4 things which are being inquired about. And what are those 4 things? Again, as I was clarifying for a while yesterday, I'll be going over them every day so that they can really be internalized into our minds. So what are those 4 things? Krishner Swarup, Radhar Swarup, Roshototto, and Premo Tottorup. So, the form of Krishna, the true nature of Krishna, the nature of Srimati Radharani, the truth of Rasa, of the transcendental loving mellows, and the true form of Prem, transcendental love. This first one, as I was saying before, as far as Krishna Swarup is concerned, we will be going into every single detail. Radhar Swarup, we will be speaking of some details, but not too many. It is a rather elevated topic, so we won't be going into full detail. And then lastly, for the last 2, Rasa and Prema, we will be discussing a tiny bit, but not so much. And then we will be going on to the 3rd and 4th questions. So, taking the Caitanya Caritamrita, we will continue. And so last lesson, yesterday, we were speaking of the list of the various qualities of Krishna that were being listed, starting with Parameshwar, and then going all the way, and on that note we concluded to Satchid Ananda Tanu Vrajendra Nandana. So that's the last thing we discussed, and we were really trying to emphasize, to bring out this point, that a big element of the Caitanya Caritamrita and also of the Bhagavatam, a big element of the way that they portray Krishna, and the unique way and the the strength of this unique way of presenting God in such a conception is that it is always conceived and always portrayed as that constant sweetness being brought out by the contrast against the opulence. The majesty of God. With all of these qualities, we've heard of everything that God is meant to be. Go to any single philosophical tradition and they'll be able to tell you he must be the bedrock upon which all reality stands. He must be the cause of all causes. He must have all of these things. And in some way or another, they'll even say he must be Satchidananda. In their own ways, maybe not as developed as the Vedic version, but they'll have their own ways of understanding this. But in contrast to all of this divinity of Ishvar, actually the word, we know the Sanskrit word for opulence is Aishvarya. In Sanskrit, when you take a word that is becoming the adjective of a noun. So for example, we have the word Deva. Deva means demigod. And if we say of the demigods or divine, we say Daivik. So they're the Daivika kleshas, the pains caused by the demigod powers. And in the same way, the way this is done is you take the vowel and you make the vowel a bit stronger. I don't want to get into a Sanskrit grammar lesson here. But anyways, the word Ishvar, when it becomes turned into an adjective, so the things which are related or the things of the qualities of the Supreme Controller, the E becomes strengthened into I. And then you get Aishvarya. So Aishvarya is that which is pertaining to Ishvara. Aishvarya is all of that opulence and power of when we think of God, the Supreme Controller. And so this is very wonderful, this is very beautiful. Satchidananda Tanu. This is a very opulent, Aishvarya-filled description. But in Vraj, which means in the highest conceptions of Krishna, Krishna is not the Ishvar. Krishna is no longer the Ishvar in Vraj. In fact, he is not the controller, but he is the controlled. The Ishvars in Vraj are the devotees of Krishna. And so, to make this contrast clear, we have this. Satchidananda Tanu Vrajendra Nandana. That the son of Vrajendra, the son of Vraja, in the ruler of Vraj, he is so sweet, and he is ruled. If he's the son of someone, then he has a controller. The son has a father to be authoritative. To be authoritative over him. So that Satchidananda Tanu, that reservoir of infinite knowledge, infinite existence, and infinite bliss, what is it about him? How much of a controller is he? He's so much so that he is the son, disciplined by someone else. This contrast, this is the defining element of Raya Ramananda's teachings and of the Caitanya Caritamrita altogether. So we will continue going then. What next is mentioned? Sarvaishvarya, Sarva Shakti, Sarva Rasa Purna. And here we'll find the same thing. What are the first? There's a list of 3 things, of which Krishna is Purna, filled. He is filled with Sarva, Sarva, Sarva. There are 3 things, of which all of their varieties, Sarva means all, of which all of them Krishna is full of. First, Aishvarya. I was saying, Aishvarya, the opulences, those things which make him Ishvar. Then Sarva Shakti, all potencies. When we get a little further in and those few things that we do mention of Radha Tattva, we will discuss more about what all those potencies are. And then Sarva Rasa, all of the rasas, all of the transcendental mellows of love, all of them Krishna is Purna, he is full of. So, Shorbo Shorjo Shorbo Shakti Shorbo Rosho Purno. So, what does this mean? All opulences. We know there are the 6 opulences, and Krishna is filled with them in full. And all opulence is his. How can it not be? How is a being who is the complete cause of all causes? How is a being whom all the universes, as we've been describing, rest in, who all of the avatars find their source in? How is this being not the most opulent being? We see so much opulence. If you see a king or some royalty, I remember the last royal wedding, it was all over the news. So much opulence. So much opulence was shown, such a great display of all of these riches and everything. And the thing is, what was that for? Just some random has-been royal family. There was this big royal wedding for the British royalty, for the British royal family. What are they? They're impotent. They can't control anything in their own kingdom, their own apparent kingdom. And even then, they have none of the qualities of a Kshatriya. All actually just pointless. However, even then we saw so much opulence. How much then, just for one has-been family, of one has-been nation, on one planet in one universe. What then to speak of the opulence of the king of our heavenly planets? But then, what then to speak of the opulence of the king of all of the universes? Of all the material universes, Mahavishnu. What then to speak of the opulences of that personality of whom Mahavishnu is just an expansion of? Sarvaishvarya. All opulences can be found there. And then what else is there? Sarva Shakti. Again, we will speak about this more, but Srimati Radharani, she is expanding directly from Krishna. Or not even expanding necessarily, but he is her source. Actually, Radharani is also the source of Krishna. It's a little complicated how this works out. We will discuss it more when we get up to Radhar Shurup. But if Radharani is the Shakti of Krishna, Radharani is a form from which all other Shaktis come from. All potencies are merely expansions out from Radharani. Therefore, if Radharani is Krishna's, then by expansion, all other Shaktis are found in Krishna. All other potencies. And again, this must be true. Otherwise, how can Krishna be capable to do everything? We know Krishna is omnipotent. Omni means all, and potent means potency. Actually, this word omnipotent means all and then potent, energy. So omnipotent in Sanskrit actually means Sarva Shakti Purna. So if Krishna can do anything. We know the famous story. There's the Brahmin who inquires about this cobbler, and he's inquiring the Supreme Lord. He has inquired from the Supreme Lord about who will go back to Godhead faster. Narad has postulated this. We know this pastime. And during this, the two are there. There's this one simple beggar, and there's this one Brahmin who is very, very elevated, apparently speaking. And so the Supreme Lord tells Narad, he says, Narad Muni, he says, actually, it is that simple beggar who will be going back to Godhead, and it'll be the Brahmin who does not. And this was very shocking. And so, as a test, the Supreme Lord said, merely, you should tell them one thing. You should tell them, when they inquire what the Supreme Lord is doing, you should mention the detail. You should mention the detail that the Supreme Lord, he is putting an elephant through the head of a needle. And when the Brahmin was told this, the Brahmin was thinking, hey, how is this possible? How is it possible for a big elephant to go through the head of a needle? The eye of a needle, not the head. Sorry, I don't do much sewing. How is it possible for an elephant to go through the eye of a needle? How is this possible? And he was very confused and he was thinking. But then the simple poor man, when he was told the same detail, he said, wow, this is the glories of Bhagavan. Everything is possible for him. All things are possible for Krishna. Krishna can do whatever he pleases. Otherwise, how could he be God? But how could he do everything that he pleases to do if he is not Sarva Shakti Purna? If he is not filled with all potencies, then he would not be omnipotent, and it wouldn't be possible for him to do anything and everything. By the fact that he is able to do whatever he wants, necessarily implies that he is omnipotent. So these two qualities, Sarvaishvarya and Sarva Shakti Purna, they speak very much to the opulence of Krishna. But I was saying, this text here, this text 136, very much speaks of the distinction of the two aspects. It is very much honing in and focusing on this point. So we should understand then, when does the rasa come in? Well, the rasa comes in quite literally when he says sarva rasa purna. All of these rasas, there are rasas outside of Golok. There are rasas in Vaikuntha. In fact, in some sense, even in some impersonal liberation, there is some vague Shanta rasa maybe. But if one is to be sarva rasa, they must be able to taste all rasas, all transcendental loving mellows. And this is hinted to. Actually, sarvaishvarya means fully, just opulence. Full opulence. That is what it is referring to. Sarvaishvarya. But sarva shakti is halfway in between. On the one hand, it means all ability, all omnipotency, the ability to do whatever he wants to, the ability to be able to do all of these things, very opulent, that is spoken of. But also, if he is sarva shakti, that also implies Radharani and all the jivas who Krishna and Bhakti Devi, all of these things which are very sweet, very much speaking to the madhurya, the sweetness aspect. So sarva shakti, it includes both. And then, to be sarva rasa, purna. Purna means full. Om purnam madaha purnamidam, purnat purnam udachyate, purnasya purnam madaya, purnameva vishishyate. This is to be purna is a very strong quality of the Supreme Lord, to be full, to be complete. So, if he is sarva rasa purna, that means he is filled even with those rasas in Golok. Even the rasas, the transcendental loving exchanges of that of a small child, of that of a friend, of that of a lover. We come back to our first discussion on the first question of the Rai Ramananda Samvad. In order to be full of all rasas, these very sweet rasas which hide away, they do not get rid of, but they hide away his opulence. They must all be there. So, in this way we understand, we sometimes say the madhurya, the sweet aspect of Krishna is rasik. And so to be sarva rasa, purna is very rasik. So, like this we can understand that there's the interplay between the different aspects. So then continue going, we find here again there's the contrast. First there is sarvaishvarya, very opulent. Then there is sarva shakti, in the middle. Then there is sarva rasa, more on the rasik side. Sarva rasa purna. And then what is quoted? We were speaking a little bit before. The Brahma Samhita is quoted. Ishvara Parama Krishnaha Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govindaha Sarva Karana Karanam. Actually, all of these things are adjectives, all describing Krishna. Even the word Govinda, Prabhupada has said in his word for word that it is a name of Lord Krishna. But Govinda, it means many things. Pleaser of the senses, pleaser of the cows. It has all of these different meanings. But Krishna is the name about which all of these qualities are circling around. Krishna himself, the name Krishna is the fullest name. It is the highest name. And in this name Krishna, all these other qualities, Ishvara Parama, Satchidananda Vigraha, they are like moons or asteroids orbiting around this one name Krishna. These are all adjectives describing the implications of the word Krishna. Because what does Krishna mean? Krishna means the all-attractive. And if Krishna is all-attractive, then that gravity, the gravity of pulling everything in, because gravity is attraction, pulls in all of these other implications and qualities. To be Ishvara Paramaha, to be the highest controller, this is the implication of being Krishna, the all-attractive. Ishvara Paramaha Krishnaha. This idea is floating around. Why? Because one who can attract anyone else, he is the supreme controller. Because he controls in the most powerful way. Not by forcing somebody's will against them, but by naturally bringing their heart to attract themselves to that person. And therefore Krishna controls everyone by being Krishna, the all-attractive. All are attracted to him and therefore are put under his control. Then Satchidananda Vigraha. To have this form, it cannot just exist. It must exist to be all attractive. We are not attracted to something that does not exist. But in order to be fully attractive, it has to be dynamic. And to be dynamic means that there is a personality, which is why there's Chit. But we are not just attracted to any personality. If we think of like a stereotypical sort of boring, actually I was going to say a profession, but I didn't want to offend anyone. But we can think there are some very boring people who are not very attractive. What makes a personality attractive? If you ever ask a girl what they find attractive in a male, they'll always say if he is funny. Why? Because if one is funny, then they are bringing happiness. They are bringing joy. So joy or bliss, that is what makes a being attractive. And so much higher than that material analogy, Krishna's Ananda, Krishna's bliss is on a whole other category. But that Ananda must be there for that personality to be attractive. Therefore, Satchit Ananda Vigraha, Vigraha means the form. To be in a form composed of Satchit Ananda, this is what it entails to be Krishna, to be all attractive. Therefore, this concept of of Satchit Ananda Vigraha, it is orbiting around the conception of Krishna. Like this we can understand all of these different descriptions. All of these different descriptions of Krishna, they all revolve around that highest name. So all of these here, Govinda means the pleaser of the senses. This makes so much sense. How can someone not be pleasing if they are all attractive? When we see somebody as attractive as Krishna, naturally we should be pleased. So, like this, all of these other ones are like adjectives floating around that central holy name of Krishna. So then, we continue. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme controller. He has an eternal, blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, for he is the prime cause of all causes. And then, we find, now we are moving on. After this Shastra Praman has been quoted, we are now moving into the descriptions of the more rasic parts of Krishna's Swarup. We have understood the tattva. We have understood the philosophy. We've understood some of it at least. How can we ever fully understand, yeah? But we have come to an understanding, to an extent, of the nature of Krishna's qualities as the Supreme Lord. And we had some hint of the Rasa. But now we will be hearing about Krishna's Swarup, Krishna's qualities, in terms of Rasa. And what is that? Brindabone oprakrito nobino mudon kama Gayatri kama bije jar upashon. In the spiritual realm of Vrindavan, Krishna is the spiritual, ever-fresh Cupid. He is worshipped by the chanting of the Kama Gayatri Mantra with the spiritual seed Kleem. So, actually, this mantra, starting with Kleem, we know the Kama Gayatri. Sometimes people think, they say, oh, Gayatri Mantra, Gayatri Mantra. This means Om Bhur Bhuva Swa. People will think like this. But actually, this is only one type of Gayatri Mantra. Gayatri is actually just a meter. It's a type of poetic meter. It's a type of mantra. Gayatri isn't one mantra. People will say, I'm chanting Gayatri, because they are not aware. They only know of this one Gayatri. Om Bhur Bhuva Swa. But actually, there are many types of Gayatri mantras. There is Guru Gayatri, mantras like this. And the one that is mentioned here is the Kama Gayatri. This is one of the mantras that is given at the time of initiation, but not Vedic initiation. Sometimes we think of the giving of mantras as Diksha. We think of it in the sense of the Vedas, being given Om Bhur Bhuva Swa, and then you get your Brahminical thread, and now you are a Brahmin. This is actually only on the Vedic platform. It is only on the platform of Varnashram. It is not on the devotional platform. On the devotional platform, there's a different type of Diksha, which is called Pancharatrik Diksha. This Pancharatrik Diksha is done according to the Pancharatra. Pancharatra is a form of Tantra, but it is not the scary Tantra or the Tantra that is involved in all sorts of occult practices. This is a Tantra that is more in line with the Sattvic Vaishnav qualities. And therefore, it is described as right-hand Tantra. So these are rituals which supplement the Vedas. And so, in the Pancharatrik initiation, one gets these extra Diksha mantras. People who have second initiation, actually in ISKCON and actually in all of the groups following His Divine Grace, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada, first initiation and second initiation, these are the two initiations we have, but both Vaidik Diksha and Pancharatrik Diksha are merged together in second initiation. So in second initiation, one gets a mixture of mantras. They do get Om Bhur Bhuva Swa. They do get this mantra. But they'll also get this Kam Gayatri, which is starting with Kleem. So in this way, there is a mixture of mantras. But we should try to have an understanding. Actually, the Om Bhur Bhuva Swa, this one was not given a Diksha in our line prior to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada. Actually, this is a new addition. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he gave it in order to make the point that if one is receiving Vaishnava initiation, they're already higher than a Brahmin. So they are entitled to all that a Brahmin can have. But prior to him, they did not give this mantra. It was only the ones who were starting with Kleem, like this. Only these mantras were given. So those of us who have a second initiation, they will know something about the mantras I am speaking about. So we must understand that the Om Bhur Bhuva Swa, this is a secondary one, mainly for Varnashram points. In many ways, it was only given to prove a point. That is not to say it is not valuable. That is not to say it is not worshipable. But the more important mantras are the other ones, the other mantras that are given. These ones are very elevated, very high, very, very important. And so, what is it said? It is said that he is worshipped by the chanting of this Kama Gayatri Mantra with the spiritual seed Kleem. This is the glorification of Krishna. And so, sometimes people will say, I don't need second initiation. I don't need second initiation because I only need first to go back home, back to Godhead. Correct. Absolutely correct. No problem with that. But sometimes people will say, the only reason you need second initiation is to do pujari work. If I don't want to do pujari seva, then no need for second. And in one sense, that is true. In one sense, no need for second. Once you have first initiation, bas, you can go back home, back to Godhead. You have the correct connection to Guru Parampara. However, there is still some value in it. It is not that these mantras are only there just for deity worship. These mantras are very sweet to meditate upon. And so it is not, a second initiation does have some value with this. Actually, second initiation is historically what the word Diksha referred to. I won't get into this too much because it is a rather complex topic and can be a little confusing to understand. But originally the word Diksha, the idea of first initiation didn't exist. Diksha meant second initiation when you get the mantras. That is what Diksha historically has meant. However, it has been changed, not changed, but it has been dived into deeper. What is the real meaning of Diksha? Because when Diksha is defined by Jiva Goswami, he says it is the giving of Divya Jnanam. It is the giving of transcendental knowledge. And so this is why Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Prabhupada, they began to implement this idea of first initiation, second initiation. Actually, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur did not refer to first initiation as initiation. He referred to it as Namdan, as giving the holy name. It is actually Srila Prabhupada who first begins calling it first initiation and second initiation. But actually, even though the word Diksha would mainly refer to second initiation, because that is when mantra is being given, it is not that we can think that second initiation is more important or first initiation is more important. At different times, Srila Prabhupada tends to indicate different things. But this can be understood if we understand that these are different various things, and also can be further understood if we understand why this concept of this first initiation has been introduced. Because one of the most particular and strongest contributions that Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur had to our parampara was that the essence of the spiritual master and disciple relationship is not the giving of mantras. It is the giving of transcendental knowledge. It is the passing on of the holy name. It is the speaking of Bhagavatam. This is the defining element of that relationship. The giving of mantras is important, but it is secondary to the primary aspect of shiksha, which is why we can see on the parampara, that in certain points, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji was not initiated by Bhaktivinoda Thakur in the sense that he was not given the mantras. But shiksha, transcendental teaching, was there. Same with Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Jagannath Das Babaji. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his Diksha Guru is Bipin Bihari Goswami. But Jagannath Das Babaji had such a prominent shiksha relationship that Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur identified him as a spiritual master. So if we understand this, then we'll understand. The first initiation was introduced as a way of showing here is a formal acceptance of shiksha. Here is a formal acceptance, an outward acceptance of this dynamic relationship. I've given you the essence here. And then at second initiation, the mantras and all happen. And this is important. We cannot neglect it so much. However, the essence, the essential part is performed at first initiation, which is why first initiation is all that we need. Because that is where the essential part of the guru-disciple relationship is manifested. That is when one has properly been connected in essence to the guru parampara. There are other ways to understand first and second initiation. The other main way is to understand it in terms of pancha samskar, the 5 sanskars, but that is outside of the scope of this Caitanya Caritamrita class. So, however, at other times we also know that receiving the mantras is very important, and as we can see here, has value outside of just doing pujari seva. So this is why sometimes Prabhupada seems to prioritize first initiation and other times seems to prioritize second initiation. We should understand the mood behind each statement. Sometimes devotees, they become a bit excessive. And they'll find one quote from Prabhupada, and without looking for context or anything else, they'll say, "Bas, here is my point made." Okay. So anyway, so continuing on, Sri Rai Ramananda, he is describing that in the spiritual realm of Vrindavan, Krishna, he is the spiritual ever-fresh Cupid. This is a very sweet description, and we will hear a little bit more about what it entails in a few seconds. But we will speak a little bit more about this Gayatri Mantra. Because this Gayatri Mantra, it is very, very important. And Srila Prabhupada, he is giving a very sweet mentioning of its qualities in the purport. And he says that the Kama Gayatri Mantra is just like a Vedic hymn, but it is the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. So there we understand that this Kama Gayatri, it is very valuable. It is very exalted. It is directly Krishna. In a similar way that the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is also directly Krishna, but also in a different way. Srila Prabhupada says there is no difference between the Kama Gayatri and Krishna. Both are composed of 24.5 transcendental syllables. The mantra depicted in letters is also Krishna, and the mantra rises just like a moon. Due to this, there is a perverted reflection of desire in human society and among all kinds of living entities. And in the mantra, Krishna is called Kamadev, Pushpaban, and Ananga. Kamadev is Madan Mohan, the deity who establishes our relationship with Krishna. Pushpabana, he who carries an arrow made of flowers, is Govinda, the personality of Godhead who accepts our devotional service. And Ananga is Gopi Jana Vallabha, who satisfies all the gopis and is the ultimate goal of life. So, the Klim Gayatri simply does not belong to this material world. When one is advanced in spiritual understanding, he can worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead with his spiritually purified senses and fulfill the desires of the Lord. Now one might be confused, because it says here that Krishna and the Kama Gayatri are composed of 24.5 transcendental syllables. What? Krishna is 2 syllables. Krishna. Krishna is 2 syllables. He's not 24.5 syllables. But again, there was a hint made in Prabhupada's purport. Because those 24.5 syllables of Krishna, they are moons. Prabhupada said, like a moon is rising. And we know Krishna is composed of various moons. His eyes like moons. His forehead like moon. All of the parts of his body can actually be composed into the 24.5 moons. So very sweet. We can also understand in this way. This is how this mantra can relate. So, like this, we've understood a bit. So then continuing on, we go on to the next text, which speaks of Krishna's nature as Madan Mohan, as that transcendental Madan, that transcendental Cupid of the transcendental world. So what does Rai Ramananda say? He says, Purush Joshit Kibash Thabor Jongom Shorbo Chitta Korshok Shakhat Monmotho Modonno. The very name Krishna means that he attracts even Cupid. He is therefore attractive to everyone, male and female, moving and inert living entities. Indeed, Krishna is known as the all-attractive one. They're all attractive. That is the meaning of Krishna, the all-attractive. So again, there's a very nice long purport on this text, and we won't speak on it too long, but it is nectarian to say the least. Because it speaks about Krishna's nature. We know Cupid, he is invisible. We know the pastime. Cupid, he tried to agitate Shiva. And in his agitation of Shiva, we know Shiva, he's constantly engaged in such great yogic meditations. And often in Shastra, we'll find a low-key, implicit condemnation of those who try to achieve liberation or try to achieve spiritual goals purely through the means of meditation. Often we'll see sages like Durvasa Muni, Shiva, they're often angry. How often do we go through Shastra, do we hear pastimes, and it's always a sage getting angry and cursing someone. Almost every single pastime at one point we can trace out to an angry sage somewhere who's cursed someone. So these sages, they are often very angry. And the reason why is because this is the implicit quality, this is the implicit emotion to those who are trying so strongly to hanker towards achieving things through meditative, dry processes. So Cupid, we know, he gets destroyed by Shiva. Shiva burns him up. Because Cupid was launching arrows and he disturbed Shiva's intense meditation. There's different pastimes on how this happened, but this is one description. After having it disturbed him, Shiva, therefore, he burns him up. And after this, Cupid, he becomes invisible. Kamadev becomes invisible. And so becoming invisible, we understand here that even anger cannot kill Kamadev. Even anger cannot kill Cupid. Anger only makes it stronger. Because of becoming invisible, his job became easier. So we understand that anger in the response to lust only makes lust stronger. It does not make lust weaker. It makes lust stronger. The only thing that kills lust, the only thing that takes lust away, the only thing that is powerful enough to even conquer Cupid is what? It is the very name of Krishna, which means that he attracts even Cupid. That same Cupid who can't even be conquered by the anger of Shiva, whose anger burns down this entire universe when the time comes for that to happen. That anger will burn down this entire cosmos, and yet that barely even affects Kamadev. But Cupid is completely taken away by the beauty of Krishna. So Krishna's beauty and his transcendental qualities, this is the way that lust can be conquered. Lust cannot be conquered by sitting down and meditating. Lust cannot be conquered by working oneself up and becoming angry at lust. Lust can only be conquered when we have the vision of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. When we chant his holy names. And by chanting his holy names with sincerity, without offenses, we will become so attracted to them that we will forget all the lusts we have. This is the natural result. And this is why we should always be trying to engage ourselves in saying Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If we are always engaging in this, if we are constantly engaging in this, then we will be able to conquer lust. And lust is not just for between man and a woman. We can have lust for all sorts of things. Whenever we want to please our senses and not the senses of Krishna, that is lust. Sometimes we will see a burger and we will think, a veggie burger, I hope, and we'll think, yes, I want to eat that. That is lust. Sometimes we'll just want to sleep in and not do our service. That is lust. Sometimes we will think, I just want to watch TV and watch, just today was the presidential debate. Joe Biden, Donald Trump had a big debate. If we are thinking, I would rather watch this and be entertained by the prajalpa, the comings and goings of this world, rather than focusing and honing in and hearing Krishna Katha, maybe instead listening to Bhagavad Katha, this is lust. So lust can only be conquered if we associate with that name of Krishna. So this is the purport of this. And then again, Srila Prabhupada, he has a very sweet purport. But we will go over it. I would really recommend everyone to read just all of the 8th chapter of Madhya Lila. It's such an amazing chapter. Really go through and study. Really read thoroughly all these purports. They're so nectarian. And then what happens? There's a quote from Bhagavatam. But we will skip this quote from the Bhagavatam. Because it is describing the Rasa Lila, and we should not broadcast these things too much. But then, what does Ramananda Rai say? He uses this shlok, however, because this shlok, what does it say? It says that Sakshan Manmatha Manmathaha, that he is directly the Cupid of Cupid even. He is of Cupid, he is the Cupid. So this is why he is quoting this, to reinforce his point that even Cupid's mind gets taken away. Actually, this is how we should speak. Whenever we make a point, we should quote Shastra. So many people, they want to quote this, say this idea, that idea. Oh, I feel like this. Oh, I feel like that. Who cares how you feel? Nobody actually cares. There's no reason why we should accept just because you have some whimsical feeling. Only by quoting Shastra Pramana, only by quoting from Shastra, that is when we have authority with our statements. So we should actually, every time we make a point, we should appeal to the Shastras, as Rai Ramananda is doing. And then what does he say? He says, Nana bhakti roshamrito, nana biddho hoi, she shob roshamriter bishoy ashroy. Each and every devotee has a certain type of transcendental mellow in relation to Krishna. But in all transcendental relationships, the devotee is the worshipper, ashray, and Krishna is the object of worship, Vishai. So, this is speaking now about the fundamental level of Krishna. So what are the qualities here? We will go word for word again, like we were doing earlier. Nana bhakti roshamrit. So, of various types of devotees, the nectar of devotion, Rasa Amrit. Amrit can also mean life-giving. So Rasa is giving life. Because otherwise we are dead without Rasa. There is no action and we may as well be dead. So, of the various types of the devotion, the nectar of devotion, from all various types of devotees, they exist, nana biddho, in different varieties. She shob, but all of them, roshomriter, Bishoy ashroy. Of them, the subject and the object. So, the devotee is always the worshipper, the ashray, and Krishna is always the object, the vishai. Because ashray, in one sense, these words can also refer to shelter. Krishna is sheltering his devotees in their passion within him. So we understand it is always the devotee giving their love out to Krishna. Of course, Krishna reciprocates in rasa and pastime, and also practically. But the understanding of the devotee is that all the devotees are sheltered. No matter what feelings they have, Krishna is the shelter. He is the reservoir. He is a place where all of those moods can be put into. All of those rasas, no matter what they are, all of them are a pouring out of emotion into the ashray of Krishna. The Vishay of Krishna. So, in all of them, they are pouring out in this way to the Vishay of Krishna. So then, what is quoted? After that, we hear a quoting of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Already we have spoken about how it's a little weird that Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is being quoted. However, we will speak about it and we will actually take a look, because this is the opening text. This is the opening text of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and it is a very, very important shloka. All devotees should actually try to memorize this one. What is it? Akhila Rasamrita Murtihi Prasrimara Ruchi Rudha Taraka Palihi Kalita Shyama Lalito Radha Preyan Vidhur Jayati. Let Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, be glorified. By virtue of his expanding attractive features, he subjugated the gopis named Taraka and Pali and absorbed the minds of Shyama and Lalita. He is the most attractive lover of Srimati Radharani and is the reservoir of pleasure for devotees in all transcendental mellows. So here's the pramana. He is the ultimate reservoir of all pleasure. Therefore, he is the object of worship for everyone, which is why this has been quoted. All types, no matter what moods there are, he is Akhila Rasamrita Murtihi. He is that form, which is the reservoir of all pleasures. Akhila Rasa, Amrita, and then Murtihi. He himself embodies that form. It is not that he is formlessly an ocean in which devotion is poured into. He is himself the very form. If we were to take a form which can accept all varieties of love, we would be able to come up with no other form other than Krishna to most perfectly embody that. Krishna must be God, because only Krishna so beautifully, so wonderfully reciprocates all of these moods. And His Holiness Dhanodhar Swami said this was his realization. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Why? Because when he read Krishna book, he thought, surely there can be no greater person than this. Because look, he is like a hero, tasting this rasa. He is such a sweet little child, tasting this rasa. He is this romantic hero as well, tasting that rasa. And he is this dear, dear friend. All of these rasas are found. And so this verse is very, very powerful, and actually is a very central verse. As I was saying, all devotees should memorize it. But there's actually different meanings which can be taken out from it, and Jiva Goswami has given very, very nice word-for-word meanings. So I thought we will speak some, coming from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu translation by His Holiness Bhanu Swami. This is a very wonderful edition. His Holiness Bhanu Swami Maharaj Ki Jai. That's really all that we can say. He has done such a great contribution to devotional studies by producing this publication. However, devotees should read it after they have completed reading the Nectar of Devotion by Srila Prabhupada. After deep study of that, then maybe 1, 2, 3 readings of that book, then they can move on to this text. This text is very nice. It has lots of details. And it also has purports, commentaries on each text. So Bhanu Maharaj, he gives his own 2 translations. And they are also very nice, with different layers of meanings. The first one is Krishna is the destroyer of all sin and the bestower of all bliss. The very form of the highest bliss, filled with all rasas, excels all others in glory. He brings Taraka and Palika under his control by the diffusion of his beauty. He accepts Shyamala and Lalita as his equals, and he gives pleasure to Radha by his excellent qualities. So this is the definition that Srila Prabhupada gave. The second meaning, which also exists, means the full moon, which destroys suffering and creates happiness by its cooling rays, shines everywhere with its excellent qualities and beauty. It is the very form of nectar, filled with all tastes. It eclipses the host of stars by its light, accepts the playful gestures of the night, and fondly enters the Vishaka constellation in the spring season. So this is another meaning which is being given, and it is very, very deep, it is very sweet, it is very beautiful. The Vishaka constellation is also the Radha constellation. This point must be made. The Vishaka constellation, Vishaka and Radharani, Srimati Radharani, I was speaking before, they're born at the same time, under the same astrological influences. So they are one and the same. Not that Vishaka is Radharani, but rather we can find lots of mentions of Vishaka are referring to Srimati Radharani. So, speaking of the various words that are being said here in this text, the first word is one of the last words, Radha Preyan Vidhur Jayati. And so, Jiva Goswami, he comments on this word, Viduhu. Vidhu refers to Krishna. Vidhu, Krishna, excels in all excellent qualities. So this is what Vidhur Jayati means. So, Vidhu means all of these wonderful qualities, and Jayati, he is conquering over all of them. So, this word Vidhu, it also stands for Vidhnoti, which means he defeats. It indicates the person who transcends all sufferings, or the person who surpassed all other things. Vidhu can also stand for Vidadhati, which means he produces. This indicates the person who produces all happiness, or the person who causes everything. In this way, the meaning of Vidhu can be derived. Considering these factors, one can come to a conclusion about the meaning of Vidhu. I won't be reading out all the various descriptions of each word. I just wanted to explain why there are so many different varieties of translations that are being produced. Because this is a point about Shastra. Shastra is so deep. His Holiness Gaur Govinda Maharaj would always say, Shastra, it is like an ocean. If we only go through the surface reading through once, not trying to delve deep into it, then all we will find are fish. But if we dive deep, if we try to go as deep as we can within the pages of Shastra, then so many gems and jewels and pearls and all sorts of other various beautiful things are made available to us. This is how we should understand these things. We must go deep into Shastra. And if we go deep, it is not that we will ever reach the bottom. We will never reach a point where we have exhausted all that Shastra has to give. How many meanings were being given just for the word Vidhu? Just one word of the many words in this one shloka of many shloks. In fact, even just one text. One can spend their whole life analyzing just one text of Shastra. So I'm trying to make this point. And then there is a very sweet description of why Vidhu must mean Krishna. Because he alone is famous for his ability to liberate even the demons. Actually, we'll find this. Very, very rarely does any other form give liberation. And in fact, only one other form, ever to my knowledge at least, gives devotion besides Krishna. Krishna gives devotion even to demons. But there's only one form that gives devotion besides Krishna. That is Narasimhadev. Narasimhadev gave to Prahlad Maharaj by touching his head. But that's a little side point. He alone is famous for his ability to surpass all others by his powers. He alone is famous for bestowing happiness, up to the greatest happiness found in his most astounding prem. He alone is famous as Swayam Bhagavan, the original cause of everything. Therefore, his names are particularly mentioned in the Amara Kosh with great prominence, with such statements as Vasudevo Sya Janaka, his father is Vasudev. All these meanings of Vidhu are made clear by the verb Jayati. He excels, Jayati, all others. This means he exists with all the most excellent qualities. That indeed refers only to Krishna. The present tense is used to dispel the conception of common people that he cannot be perceived now, since he was visible only for the period of his descent. So much nectar is being drawn out just by these two words now. Vidur Jayati. So even one tiny thing, a grammatical detail. Jayati means right now. It means in the present. It is happening right now. How much nectar is being pulled out from there? So many conclusions we can draw. Because it is true that Krishna is still beautiful now. It is not that he was beautiful then and now has disappeared. If we have the eyes to see, if we have the premanjana, we should be able to see the Supreme Lord. We should be able to see Krishna's beauty, but we cannot. We should not think when we go to Vrindavan that Krishna is not running around with his childhood friends. We should not think any of these things, which is why this one specific word has been used, Jayati. We should understand these things. And we should see this as an example of how deeply one can go into Shastra. All these various beautiful glorifications. Krishna, who is the one liberating demons. Krishna, who is the one giving such great happiness, even to the point of prema. And as we remember from the previous question in the Rai Ramananda Samvad, prema is the highest thing which we can consider when qualified in Kanta Prem. So the highest point of prema is the highest perfection that anyone can speak of. All of these great conclusions being brought out only by Vidhu. And then Jayati, how many greater conclusions as well. We should see from this. I'm just taking this point to see because we are going so quickly and so many Shastras are being quoted. We're going so quickly through this Rai Ramananda Samvad. We might think we can quote Shastra and this is what it is saying. We can only understand maybe a tiny hint of what Shastra is saying. Shastra is so deep. We should never feel bored. Sometimes people, they'll finish Prabhupada's books and they'll think, oh, I'm not going to read them again. I've read them. What rascaldom, actually. In fact, all the other books we read, we should be reading in order to bring ourselves into a deeper appreciation of Srila Prabhupada's books. Prabhupada's books are so deep, we should never be satisfied with our understanding of them. So much nectar, so much depth is found, even in one text. If only we were to meditate on them and meditate upon them and meditate upon them. Sometimes it is said by Radhika Raman Prabhu, a very, very scholarly devotee. His glories, if I could do as many classes as I've done on Caitanya Caritamrita so far, I could giving the glories of Radhika Raman Prabhu. And he is a very, very skilled Sanskrit scholar. But he often says that the most dangerous thing you can do is half learn Sanskrit. Because a tiny bit of knowledge is a lot more dangerous than no knowledge. In the same way, it can be so dangerous for us only at a surface level to try to understand Prabhupada's books and then become satisfied with that. We will become arrogant, firstly, because we will think, oh, now I know something. Now I understand all of these truths. But more so than just us becoming arrogant, more so than us just falling into the depths of arrogance, we will also miss out, again, what Gaur Govinda Maharaj referred to, those wonderful pearls. We will miss out on all of these things. The beautiful pearls and gems at the bottom of the ocean. And at the end, we become hurt the most. We do not benefit. It is not, Srila Prabhupada did not command his disciples to read his books for Prabhupada's benefit. He did it for all of his disciples' benefit and all of his grand disciples' benefit. So, because of this, we should go deep into Prabhupada's books. We should go deep into all of the understandings. All these realizations are available if we execute devotional service, if we serve, have some menial service, if we chant our rounds, if we do all of these things, all of these conclusions will be available to us. And so, I don't want to go too deep into this commentary because then we will lose track of Caitanya Caritamrita, but I wanted to speak about this text because this is a very important text for devotees to understand. But in order to even justify this, we see not just Rai Ramananda, but all of the bona fide acharyas are constantly quoting Shastra. And so various shlokas from Bhagavatam are quoted to justify this interpretation of Vidhu. So if one thinks, oh, I do not have access to these commentaries, I cannot put all these deep realizations. All these deep realizations are coming from reading Bhagavatam alone. And therefore, one needs nothing more than Srimad Bhagavatam. And we have so mercifully received Srimad Bhagavatam. So we should not think like this. We should just go deep into Shastra, go deep into Srimad Bhagavatam. And the best way to go deep into Srimad Bhagavatam is to go deep into Sri Caitanya Caritamrita. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has said this. The Bhagavatam should be read, should be understood within the frame, within the framing, within the context of Caitanya Caritamrita. So if we go deep into Prabhupada's books, so many realizations are available to us. So then he quotes various points from Bhagavatam to justify this point. So there's a few other points I wanted to read from Jiva Goswami's purport on this text. However, I think we are coming to the conclusive moments of today's class. So I will conclude, and then next week we will continue our discussion on this text, and we will hear his comments on the name Akhila Rasamrita Murtihi. And then after hearing a bit more of these elaborations and explanations, we will continue then with the Rai Ramananda Samvad and continue to delve deep into its subject matter and to try to come to understand it a bit better and just continue hearing of the wonderful glories and qualities of Sri Bhagavan Krishna. Shri Rai Ramananda ki jai, Shri Krishna's Kaviraj Thakur ki jai, Shri Caitanya Caritamrita ki jai, Shri Rai Ramananda Samvad ki jai, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.